Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're going to work on the Allis Chalmer's D17 tractor. We're going to be putting some new brake pads on today, so let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to go ahead and take these two covers off here so that we can access the brakes. So as we look in here, you can see that there's two brake return springs, and we need to basically get those freed up, and they come out a hole on each side and just hook on there. So we'll just get some pliers and loosen those up. We'll try some vice grips. Oh, it's on there pretty good. Oh, got it off. It's free. This one's a little bit lighter spring than the other one, a little bit easier. So on the very bottom here, there is a pin that holds in the brakes, and then it has this retainer on there. We're going to take that off. And that pin's got a slot in it that goes in and holds it in place. Now we got to see if we can pull this out. So I'm going to expect that we're not going to probably be able to get this out very easily. We'll go ahead and try the other side. Oh, I thought I was going to move there for a second. Must have been wishful thinking. Well, I can't get the bottom pins out of the brake shoes. Now they do sell like a little removal tool that will fit into the slot of that pin, and that'll help you pull that pin out of there. And I don't have one of those, but it's a fairly simple little deal. I think I can make one up fairly quickly with the mill back here. So I just need a little scrap piece of metal, and I think we can make ourselves a jig to pull those pins. So let's give it a shot. So now that I've got the slot made, I'm just going to drill a couple holes and tap them for some jack screws. Now all I gotta do is just tap these holes, put a couple bolts in them, and I think we're ready to pull the pins. This tap's going in a little bit harder than I would prefer. Maybe getting dull. This is an old set of taps. It was my grandfather's, so I'm not sure how many years old these taps are, but they have come in very handy. And there we're through on that one. And there is our finished puller. See if we can get these pins out. All right, so we're going to put our puller on top of our pin. Just going to go ahead and snug these bolts down. So just tighten these bolts, and it's just going to pull out on this pin. We'll go ahead and speed this up a little bit. Well, I'm out of screw. Let's see if we can get it out now. There we go. Got it out. Whoosh. Phew, that was a long pin. Well, the rear shoe comes out. There we go. Finally got the rear brake pad out. Brake shoe. So hopefully this side will come apart easier. I really don't see how you get that out without pulling this piece off. Well, the book doesn't say to take this pivot piece out of here, but it seems to be the only way that's working for me. All right. The book also says you can remove the front one first, and it does come out. It came out a lot easier on that side. All right, we got the back one out.
Alright, so the brakes were really full of what I thought was birds' nests. So I volunteered to blow it all out. And I got it swept up here. I picked all through it with my hands to make sure I didn't lose any of Evan's parts. And then I found a little skeleton, and then Evan tells me it's a mouse nest. So I may not have blown it out for him if I knew it was a mouse nest. But luckily there were no mice in there, no living mice in there. But it's nice and clean in the brakes now.
So here's one of the brake shoes that we took out of the tractor. And inside of there you can see that's the brake pad here inside. And it is riveted to this brake shoe here. So we're just gonna go ahead and punch these rivets out and remove the brake pads so we can put some new ones in there. So I've got the brake pads removed from all of the shoes. And the next thing I want to do is I want to clean these up a little bit better. And I want to put a fresh coat of paint on there. Basically just to keep it from rusting. Nobody's going to see these. They're going to be hidden inside the tractor. But I'd like to get them painted up. So, you know, these brakes have been bad on the tractor for a long time. And I complained about them in a video. Probably several videos over the years. And I actually had a subscriber send me brand new brake pads and brand new return springs for each one of these shoes. And that's probably been over a year ago. I'm sure it's been over a year ago. And I'm finally just getting around to it. So thank you very much, Thomas, for sending the parts to do the brake job. I do appreciate that. And sorry it's taken me so long to finally get a chance to break the tractor down and to do this. But I do appreciate you sending me the parts. That was very nice of you. And we'll go ahead and we'll get those put in here as soon as we get this painted up and the paint's dry. So this is the tool that we made to pull the bottom pin out of the brakes. And the first set of bolts that I used, I was able to pull that pin out about 1 inch. And the pin still wasn't loose enough to come out. So I needed something with longer threads. So what I came up with was carriage bolts. Carriage bolts are threaded all the way out to the end. But the bad thing is they have a round head on them, right? So I ended up I welded some nuts to the end of the carriage bolts. That way I could use the impact on it and drive these in. And then that ended up getting it to where I finally was able to pull the pin out about 4 inches. Now this pin is really long. So that was able to get it pulled out about halfway, but that was loose enough where I was able to get a hold of it and work the pin out the rest of the way. So this did work, but the bad thing is I think if you get it too crooked, you end up breaking the pin, and that's what I ended up doing. So on the second one, I don't know if you can see that, I ended up breaking the head off of the pin. I was able to still get it out, but I'm gonna have to order a new pin for the left side brakes. But overall, I think my little jig that I made, it took me about an hour really to like mill this out and get it all tapped, but it did work. You know, it's real similar to the ones that you can buy. So if you're gonna do the brake job, definitely suggest getting one of these tools, because this pin does not want to come out. I mean, I think you're gonna find in most cases, that's a lawful long pin. It's not gonna come out very easy. All right, I've got the brake shoes, I've got those painted, and of course nobody's gonna see this once it gets put in the tractor, but maybe that'll help prevent a little bit of rust. So to put the brake pads in here, here's the brake pad, and it is like a flexible, it's almost like a really, I don't know, thick rubber maybe, and that is the brake pad, and that's gonna go down inside of here, and then we're gonna run rivets through these holes in the back and have to rivet that on there. So I bought a rivet tool, and that's what this is. This thing is tiny. And this is really made for brake bands, not like a thick shoe like this. So this bottom, there's like a punch here that you hammer down to drive the rivet. And this anvil here at the bottom actually would have to go up inside of here, and there's no way that this is supposed to fit this at all. So what I'm going to do is we're just going to have to make something up and try to figure something out to be able to rivet this down in here. So I'm just going to go ahead, we'll get all the rivets, see if we can press the rivets down in here and hold that brake band in place. And then we're going to try to figure out how to punch the rivets so that the brake pad stays in place. So here's the rivets used to hold the brake band in place. They're just a brass hollow rivet. I'm gonna go ahead and put the rivets in the brake pad first, and then see if we can get them through the holes in the shoe. This may be more difficult than you think. All right, you can see the rivets going through the brake pad and through the back of the shoe. So now we just got to set these with a punch. All right, so the way I'm going to do this, I've got a taper punch, and it's got pretty much a 1/4 inch, I think it's a 1/4 inch at the end. We're going to use that to put on the head of the rivet, so I've basically got to put this over the top. See if I can get that down in one of those rivets. So I'm going to use the punch that came with the brake tool that didn't fit, and we're going to try our best here to set this rivet by hand. And it should flare this end out. That's the idea. It should flare it out. See what happens. That actually doesn't look bad at all. Flared it out just like we wanted. I think that's going to work out just fine. All right, there's the first one done. All 9 rivets are set, and then the brake pad is perfectly in place. Looks good. All right, I've got all the brake pads onto the shoes, and some of the little tricks that I did is to push the shoe and hold it down in there since it is flexible. I ended up using some of these quick grip welding clamps basically, and that would hold the shoe down in there. It would help to maybe get the middle rivet started first, and then the rest of the holes would line up fairly well. If they didn't line up good enough, that pad is a rubber, so then I was able to just drill through and maybe widen the hole out just a hair so that I could get the rivet stuck through. And then I ended up using this rivet punch that came on this tool that was too short to use, but yet this tool, this punch here, is designed for those hollow rivets to roll them over. And that's what I ended up using to punch that rivet. So overall, that wasn't too bad. I think that took me about I don't know, about 20 minutes to get those put on there. And now what I'm going to do now is there's springs to put on each one of these. They're brake return springs. And Thomas was nice enough to send me all new springs as well. So I think we'll go ahead and get the springs on here, and I think these are ready to go back in. So as I was putting the springs on here, I noticed the shoes aren't quite the same. In the parts manual, all 4 of these should match, and they don't. You can see we have one that's got a hole cut in it, and it's actually a lot bigger physically than the other one. See, I don't know if you can tell the difference. This one is way bigger. And if you look at the other side, it's cut differently too. See, it's cut away on that side. So big difference between the shoes. And like I said, these should all match. They should all be identical, and they're not. And the other thing about it is they're opposite of each other. The bigger one is on the front for this pair, and the bigger one is on the back on this pair. So they're physically 180 degrees out from each other. And from what I can tell from the parts manual, this is actually the correct one, this smaller one. So I'm not sure where this one came from. I know there is different part numbers depending on the serial number of your tractor. So maybe this is the one I should have, possibly, and this is for a later model, or vice versa. Maybe this is the older and this is the newer. But they don't match, and I don't like that they're opposite. So I may try to switch some things around here, and I don't like this big spring, barely fits through this hole. You can see the small spring works a lot better in the hole. So I may switch things around so that this bigger shoe is on the front, so I'd have to move this adjustment bolt over to there, and then I think everything would be fine. But it is a little weird that these are not all the same, and they should be. But according to the parts manual, these are all 4 the same part number. But anyway, this has worked before. I'm sure it'll work again, but it's just kind of a weird thing that I found just now when I was putting these springs on here. So as I'm editing this video, I'm going to go back, I'm going to look at the footage and figure out which set was where for sure. And one of those had a broken spring, and I'm going to assume it's the one that has the big spring going through the hole. It's probably rubbing a little bit and it broke the spring. But I'm going to go back, review the footage, and I'm going to come up with a game plan on what I want to do about them brake shoes actually being different. But for today, I think that's going to be it for this video. I wasn't actually planning on putting those in the tractor today because there's other things I want to fix in here first. And then we'll put the brakes in when we finally assemble everything back together. But we probably go ahead. Next, we're going to probably work on the final drive assemblies. I don't know if I'm going to address them while they're mounted to the tractor and replace the seals, or if I'll go ahead, I haven't made up my mind yet, or if I'll go ahead and take the loader off and then take the whole drive assembly, final drive assembly and axle out. I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet, but that's going to be the next course of action on the Allis Chalmers, is working on the final drive assembly. But I think that's it for today. This has been kind of a long video in the making with the cleaning the brake shoes and getting those painted. So it's been about 3 or 4 days in the shop before I could finally finish this video up and call it done. So ready to get this one behind me. And I haven't cleaned up very many parts yet. I am cleaning up some parts now that we got the bead blaster. And some of this stuff is not cleaning up well at all. You can tell that it was painted and then somebody painted it again over the top of the old paint. So there's about 3 layers of paint on there that has to come off, and a lot of it isn't coming off very good. So it's been quite a job just stripping the few parts that I have so far. So it's probably going to turn out to be a bigger job than I thought, trying to strip these parts down and repaint them. But I think that's going to be it for today. We'll be back here. Give me another week or 2. We'll be back here working on the tractor again on the final drives. So thanks for watching, guys. Oh, the pin broke. That ain't good. Well, it's loose enough that it's moving by hand. But I think I want to get it out. There we go.